Oppenheimer was awarded a United States National Research Council Fellowship to the California Institute of Technology, Caltech, in September 1927. Bridgman also wanted him at Harvard. So a compromise was reached whereby he split his fellowship for the 1927-28 academic year between Harvard in 1927 and Caltech in 1928. At Caltech, he struck up a close friendship with Linus Pauling. They planned to mount a joint attack on the nature of the chemical bond, a field in which Pauling was a pioneer, with Oppenheimer supplying the mathematics and Pauling interpreting the results. The collaboration and their friendship ended after Oppenheimer invited Pauling's wife, Eva Helen Pauling, to join him on a tryst in Mexico. Oppenheimer later invited Pauling to be head of the chemistry division of the Manhattan Project. But Pauling refused, saying he was a pacifist. In the autumn of 1928, Oppenheimer visited Paul Ehrenfest's institute at the University of Leiden, the Netherlands, where he impressed by giving lectures in Dutch. Despite having little experience with the language, there he was given the nickname of Oppie, later anglicized by his students as Oppie. From Leiden he continued on to the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, ETH, in Zurich to work with Wolfgang Pauli on quantum mechanics in the continuous spectrum. Oppenheimer respected and liked Pauli and may have emulated his personal style as well as his critical approach to problems. On returning to the United States, Oppenheimer accepted an associate professorship from the University of California, Berkeley, where Raymond T. Birge wanted him so badly that he expressed a willingness to share him with Caltech. Before he began his Berkeley professorship, Oppenheimer was diagnosed with a mild case of tuberculosis and spent some weeks with his brother, Frank, at a New Mexico ranch, which he leased and eventually purchased. When he heard the ranch was available for lease, he exclaimed, "Hot dog!" Udharan Chinh, and later called it perro caliente, literally, hot dog, in Spanish. Later he used to say that physics and desert country were his two great loves. He recovered from tuberculosis and returned to Berkeley, where he prospered as an advisor and collaborator to a generation of physicists who admired him for his intellectual virtuosity and broad interests. His students and colleagues saw him as mesmerizing, hypnotic in private interaction, but often frigid in more public settings. His associates fell into two camps. One saw him as an aloof and impressive genius and aesthete, the other as a pretentious and insecure poser. His students almost always fell into the former category, adopting his walk, speech, and other mannerisms, and even his inclination for reading entire texts in their original languages. Hans Bethe said of him, probably the most important ingredient he brought to his teaching was his exquisite taste. He always knew what were the important problems, as shown by his choice of subjects. He truly lived with those problems, struggling for a solution, and he communicated his concern to the group. In its heyday, there were about 8 or 10 graduate students in his group and about 6 postdoctoral fellows. He met this group once a day in his office and discussed with one after another the status of the student's research problem. He was interested in everything. And in one afternoon they might discuss quantum electrodynamics, cosmic rays, electron pair production and nuclear physics. Oppenheimer worked closely with Nobel Prize-winning experimental physicist Ernest O. Lawrence and his cyclotron pioneers, helping them understand the data their machines were producing at Berkeley's radiation laboratory. In 1936, Berkeley promoted him to full professor at an annual salary of $3,300, equivalent to $70,000 in 2022. In return he was asked to curtail his teaching at Caltech, So a compromise was reached whereby Berkeley released him for 6 weeks each year. Enough to teach one term at Caltech.